Welcome back. All right, so it's still Montreal, and boy, is this a season for Montreal. 80 game schedule, and they lose 8 games. This is that historic season that has been talked about since it took place, and still, I think the best season any team has had. So while the Boston Bruins may have set some records a year ago, I'm going to go ahead and say this Montreal season is still the most impressive, likely in NHL history. They go 68-12. Remember, those 60 wins are in regulation. There is no overtime. There are no shootouts. 132 points. They score 387 goals. They allow 171. So this is not close. And if you go into Montreal, you're almost guaranteed a loss. At home, they're 33-1-6. Away from home, 27-7-6. So ridiculous record. LA is a distant third with a 34, or distant second, I should say. 34-31-15 record for them. 271 goals scored, 241 goals against, 83 points. As the NHL still does not know how a map works. The record at home, 20-13-7. Away from home, 14-18-8. So they're only about 50 points out of first place. The Pittsburgh Penguins, 34-33-13 record for 81 points. 240 goals scored, 252 goals against. At home, they're 22-12-6. Struggle away from home, 12-21-7. The Washington Capitals are, they're better, but they're still not great. 24-42-14 record, 62 points for them, 221 goals scored, 307 goals against. At least they have a positive record at home, 17-15-8. Away from home, not so much, 7-27-6. The Detroit Red Wings are in free fall at this point. 16-55-9 record, 41 points. They are the worst team in a league that includes the Rockies and the Barons. 183 goals scored, 309 goals against. At home, they're 12-22-6. Away from home, 4-33-3. So that's the Norris division. Still seems wrong to say that. The Adams division, Boston wins that one with a record of 49-23-8, 106 points. 312 goals scored, 240 goals against. At home, Boston's 27-7-6. Away from home, 22-16-12. The Buffalo Sabres are just close second there, 48-24-8 record, 104 points, 301 goals scored, 220 goals allowed. At home, they're 27-8-5. Away from home, 21-16-3. So overall, the numbers are close. I don't know why I have 22-16-12. I'm just doing the math in my head and going, that's not right. So I'll go ahead and change that. And I'll basically, my defense to that is I've been writing a lot of numbers on the board over the last week and a half. Understandable, I might write one wrong. Toronto finishes 33-32-15 for 81 points, 301 goals scored, same as Buffalo, but they allow 65 more goals, 285 goals against. At home, they're 18-13-9. Away from home, they're 15-19-6. The Cleveland Barons, the Oakland Seals, the California Golden Seals, the California Seals, whichever name you want to use, are gone. They moved to Cleveland. They get better in Cleveland, but not by much. 25-42-13 record, 240 goals scored, 292 goals against, 63 points. At home, 14-17-9 record. Away from home, 11-25-4. Attendance in Cleveland is not much better than it was in Oakland, and there's talk of whether or not the team's going to stay there during their first season in Cleveland. The Patrick division is led by the Philadelphia Flyers, 48-16-16 record. 323 goals scored, 213 goals against for 112 points. They're very good at home. 33-6-1. Away from home, 15-10-15. So the Flyers, excellent regular season. The New York Islanders, 47-21-12 for 106 points. 288 goals scored, 193 goals against. At home, the Islanders are 24-11-5. Away from home, 23-10-7. The Atlanta Flames are third in the division, 34-34-12 record for 80 points, 264 goals scored, 265 goals against. At home, Atlanta's 22-11-7. Away from home, 12-23-5. The New York Rangers, 29-37-14, 72 points, so they missed the playoffs. 272 goals scored, 310 goals against. At home, 17-18-5. Away from home, 12-19-9. So there's the Patrick division. The Smythe division's won by St. Louis, and one is, it's loosely used here. They only had 73 points, a record of 32-39-9, as the Smythe is not good. 239 goals scored, 276 goals against. At home, they're 22-13-5. Away from home, a woeful 10-26-4, and they win the division. Minnesota's second, 23-19-18, 64 points, 240 goals scored, 310 goals against. At home, 17-14-9 record. Away from home, 6-25-9. That record has an odor. The Chicago Blackhawks make the playoffs. Now, some videos back, I talked about how the Hawks would not miss the playoffs again until, I think it's the 1998 before they missed the playoffs again. But it's kind of semantics because they only had 63 points. They wouldn't have made the playoffs. They wouldn't have been near the playoffs in any division except this one. So they finished 26-43-11, 63 points. They make the playoffs on a tiebreaker with Vancouver, 240 goals scored, 298 goals against. At home, they're 19-16-5. Away from home, 7-27-6. They finished with one more win than Vancouver, same number of points. Canucks 25-42-13 on the season, 63 points, 235 goals scored, 294 goals against. At home, Vancouver 13-21-6. Away from home, 12-21-7. So they spread the mediocrity around. The Colorado Rockies, and yes, I'm using a magnet that's technically Colorado Avalanche, but the Rockies, their logo was basically the Colorado State flag. That's what that logo is based on, so I can use that. 20-46-14 record for the Rockies. They finished with 54 points, 226 goals scored, 307 goals against. At home, the Rockies are 12-20-8, so not great. On the road, 8-26-6. And Rocky is the right name for them because things are definitely rocky over their term in Colorado. I don't think they had a winning record the entire time they were in Denver. Makes it hard to make new fans when the team isn't any good. So the Scouts have moved to become the Rockies. The Seals moved to become the Barons. That is the first move that the NHL has seen since the Senators moved to St. Louis in 1934. Of course, I think it was the New York Americans wanted to move to St. Louis as well, and the NHL's like, no. Expansion to Seattle and Denver had been the plan. Of course, Denver gets the Rockies, so yeah, not great. But the plan to expand to Seattle and Denver is shelved because they understand that both the Capitals and the Scouts aren't any good, and adding 2 more expansion teams is going to make that worse. So they decide not to, and of course, Seattle doesn't get a team until 2021. So it's too bad for Seattle they didn't get a team in the 70s, but I agree with the NHL on pumping the brakes. They probably should have pumped the brakes or at least slowed things down prior to this. The Habs set records for wins with 60, points with 132, and points percentage with an 825 points percentage. Again, there were no overtime games. That is all regulation. That's ridiculous. February 2nd of 1977, Leafs defenseman Ian Turnbull has 5 goals on 5 shots. That's an NHL record. It's absolutely fantastic. The WHA goes from 14 to 11 teams that season, so they have a hard time keeping a 14-team league going. While there's 18 teams in the NHL, that's 32 teams altogether. Makes sense, not all of them are going to be able to survive in the WHA, and of course we know the WHA itself will not survive. May 26th of 1976, the New York Rangers trade Rick Middleton to the Boston Bruins for Ken Hodge Sr. So a veteran going to the Rangers, a young player going to Boston, works out pretty well for the Bruins. June 24th of 1976, the unthinkable. The Boston Bruins will not pay Bobby Orr what he wants. The Chicago Blackhawks will. So Chicago signs Bobby Orr. He plays a handful of games for Chicago. His knees are done. Basically, his knees are done. And so while Boston, I think, was fine with the idea of paying him if he could play, his knees are done at that point. So it's a sad ending, and as you can see, Chicago, not a very good team that year either. March 10th of 1977, the Habs set an NHL record with a 28-game unbeaten streak at home. That's ridiculous. I don't know that we'll ever see that again. I guess it's quite possible that we see unbeaten streaks like that, considering there are 3-point games. Again, that's without the 3-point game. October 7th of 1976, Stan Mikita becomes the 3rd NHL player to reach 1,300 career points. So really strong numbers for Mikita, a player who never had 100 points in a season, but he was very consistent. March 3rd of 1977, the Rangers retire number 7. That's Rod Gilbert's number. That is the first number that the New York Rangers retire. First of a few that they would retire, but Rod Gilbert being retired first makes a lot of sense. He was the heart and soul of that team for a while, and as you can see, they're having struggles at this point in time. So your award winners, the Art Ross Trophy goes to Guy Lafleur. Guy Lafleur gets a lot of hardware that year. He wins the Hart. He wins the Conn Smythe. He also wins the Lester Pearson. So the players agree he's the best player in the league. The Masterton Trophy goes to Ed Westfall of the New York Islanders. The Calder goes to Willie Plett of the Atlanta Flames. The Jack Adams goes to Scotty Bowman of the Montreal Canadiens, of course, because they only had 8 losses. The Lady Byng goes to Marcel Dion of the LA Kings. And the Vezina goes to Ken Dryden and Michel Larocque of the Montreal Canadiens. Michel Bunny Larocque, as he was known. The All-Stars that year at the end of the season, your first team All-Star down the middle is Marcel Dion of the LA Kings. Gilbert Perreault of the Buffalo Sabres, the second team. On the right side, Guy Lafleur of the Montreal Canadiens, first team. Lanny McDonald of the Toronto Maple Leafs, second team. On the left side, Steve Shutt of the Montreal Canadiens, first team. Rick Martin of the Buffalo Sabres, second team. On the blue line, Larry Robinson, who had himself quite the season. He is your first team All-Star on the blue line, and he also won the Norris Trophy. So when I was putting this together, I missed the Norris. The Norris is right here. Borje Salming of the Toronto Maple Leafs is the other first team All-Star on the blue line. Denny Potvin of the New York Islanders and Guy Lapointe of the Montreal Canadiens, your second team All-Stars. In net, Ken Dryden of the Montreal Canadiens is first team All-Star, and Rogie Vachon of the LA Kings is second team All-Star in net. So your scoring winner, Guy Lafleur again. 80 games, 56 goals, 80 assists for 136 points. Lafleur just absolutely fantastic. He's about to get overshadowed. Marcel Dion of the LA Kings, 80 games, 53 goals, 69 assists, 122 points. Steve Shutt in Montreal, 80 games, 60 goals, 45 assists, 105 points. So really good season for Steve Shutt. Rick McLeish of the Flyers, 79 games, 49 goals, 48 assists for 97 points. Gilbert Perreault in Buffalo, 80 games, 39 goals, 56 assists for 95 points. And Tim Young of the Minnesota North Stars, 80 games, 29 goals, 66 assists, 95 points. I like Tim Young. In net, Ken Dryden leads the way in wins with a record of 41, 6, and 8, 920 save percentage, and 10 shutouts. Really strong numbers from Dryden during an era where goaltenders are starting to have their issues. Bernie Parent, he makes his triumphant return to Philadelphia as their starter. 35, 13, and 12 record, 899 save percentage, 5 shutouts. Rogie Vachon in LA, 33, 23, and 12 record, 903 save percentage, and 8 shutouts. Jerry Desjardins in Buffalo, 31, 12, and 6 record, 900 save percentage, 3 shutouts. Jerry Cheevers in Boston, record of 30, 10, and 5. He does have 3 shutouts. He also has a low save percentage of 881 that season. So we get to the playoffs. And the preliminary round, still best 2 out of 3. Toronto knocks out Pittsburgh 2-1. LA knocks out Atlanta 2-1. Buffalo beats Minnesota 2-0. And the Islanders knock out the Blackhawks 2-0. I believe this is the point in time where the Hawks go the longest streak without a single win in the playoffs. They get swept a lot. I think that's where it starts. The quarterfinals, the Islanders sweep Buffalo 4 straight. Boston beats LA in 6 games. Philadelphia beats Toronto in 6 games. And Montreal sweeps the Smythe Division winning St. Louis Blues. So, yeah, nobody from the Smythe Division lasts very long. Chicago gets swept, Minnesota gets swept, and St. Louis gets swept. So thanks for coming out. The losing teams do not advance. In the semifinals, Boston goes into Philadelphia and wins both games. Extra time needed both times. 4-3 win in overtime in Game 1. 5-4 win in double overtime in Game 2. Boston then wins at home 2-1 and 3-0 to sweep the Philadelphia Flyers and move into the Stanley Cup Final, where they face the winner of the Islanders and Montreal. Islanders are getting close. Not quite there yet. Montreal wins both games at home, 4-3 and 3-0. The Islanders win Game 3, 5-3 at home. Montreal wins 4-0 to go up 3-1. The Islanders then go into Montreal and win in overtime 4-3 before Montreal answers with a win in New York, 2-1, to win that series in 6. It's Boston-Montreal in the Stanley Cup Final, which is a bad matchup for Boston. Montreal wins 7-3 and 3-0 at home. They go to Boston, they win 4-2, and then they win in overtime 2-1. 4-game sweep for the Montreal Canadiens. Boston can't get it done. In that final, Brad Park had a goal and 4 assists for Boston. Middleton had 2 assists, and Terry O'Reilly had a goal. Cheevers had an .822 save percentage in the final. So, yeah, Montreal did a good job in that final. Lafleur had 2 goals, 7 assists. Jacques Lemaire had 4 goals, 2 assists. Schutt had 2 goals and 3 assists. Larry Robinson had 3 assists. Bob Gainey didn't have a point, but he's a defensive forward. And Dryden had a .935 save percentage in that Stanley Cup final. So there you go. The 76-77 season's all done. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.